Hello out there, and welcome to the Danny.
Yeah, Rihanna show. This is Danny Pena, Rihanna's husband.
And this is Rihanna Manuel Pena, Danny's wife. Danny, today we have a very exciting episode. We have, drumroll please, our first guest.
First guest
Yay!
ever on the show. We've been
So,
talking about having guests for a while, but this is exciting.
so we have had guests back when we were more focused on gaming content, but since we've pivoted to this incredible move that we're planning from LA to the Dominican Republic, we have Kenya from TropiMom who is doing almost the same thing right now with her family.
Yes, actually, in the process of moving to Punta Cana in Dominican Republic, and yeah, would love to learn more about the process. And I have lots of questions to ask her about
Oh yeah.
moving family over there. How was it? Buying the house and like all that. The same thing that we're going through, but I think people will love to hear this conversation. Family members are actually moving to the same location. And why Punta Cana? I'm so curious to know why she decided to go over there too with her family. So I think it's gonna be a great conversation overall.
But before we get to our questions with Kenya, we just wanted to say thank you once again for everyone who's subscribed on YouTube. We are getting so much closer to 1,000 subs, and we couldn't be more excited or grateful for all of your support and feedback. So thank you so much for engaging with the show here. We don't want to waste any time. Let's go ahead and get to it with Kenya from TropiMom.
Let's do it.
All right, so Kenya, we have you here on our show, our first Dominican expat family guest, and we're so excited to hear from you. Welcome.
Thank you for having me on your show. I'm so happy to be here and to share what knowledge we've gotten to this point with you guys and with everybody that's out there.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us. So I gotta start this question because a lot of people are gonna ask too. What made you decide to actually move to Punta Cana out of all places, Dominican Republic?
Okay, so I'm gonna be honest with you guys. Haley and I have been wanting to move to DR for a very long time. I have a 13-year-old boy. When my 13-year-old boy was 1, I was like, I want to go back to DR. And my husband's like, hold up, lady. We need to be in the States. We have careers to get. And I like El Cibao, which is the area that I like. I like the northern part of the country because that's where my husband's family's from. We were both raised in the capital. And every time we would go to El Cibao, we would look at each other like, I don't think the kids are going to make it here. So we needed a place that was kind of like a landing spot, okay, somewhere where they still had amenities, they still had expats, they still had people that they can communicate with, but we were still in DR. So we started kind of venturing out between Santiago, El Cibao, La Capital. And when we went to Punta Cana, I saw that they found kids at the park. They found kids everywhere that would still speak English and they felt comfortable. So we wanted to have the transition be as smooth as possible. So that was why we decided Punta Cana, because we knew that the transition from us being in Texas to there was going to be smoother if we had like a landing cushion, you know?
Yeah, no, that's a
Yeah.
great thing. And I remember moving to Dominican Republic for the first time as a kid. It was really hard for me because, my Spanish wasn't that great, and we were living in San Francisco Macorís at that time in the 90s. And it was really, really hard for me. But once I started learning Spanish and everything, it completely changed for me. Like I love, the city, love the people. And it was one of the best times of my life living over there. So they're probably definitely gonna love it over there too, man.
So I actually went through that transition. My mom moved me back to DR when I was in 8th grade, and she put me in the
Oh.
capital. And I didn't know how to read. I didn't know how to write. It was a tough first year. And I thought about what I went through, what you went through, Danny. And it's just not, we just wanted to make it a little bit easier. And I know that after they learn the language and they get involved, it'll be easier.
100%.
Well, I have maybe more of a current question for you because we love your channel. We've been following your content, and you mentioned recently that you started packing up your house for the big move. And there's a lot of other creators that we've seen make this transition, but I don't think we've gotten such a clear view of how hard it is to pack up kids and move them, and I would love to hear more about how you decide, like, what toys and books to keep out, like, how do you make your temporary, 3-week suitcase work? What has that process been like for your family?
So we started this in the summertime. I had a 5 bedroom, 4 bath house with a pool and 2 sheds. So it was
Wow.
Mm,
a lot to downsize. So when the house sold, I did a lot of let's push it out. If you don't need it, if you've outgrown it, if that Pete the Cat book, you read it, everybody knows you love it. We're done with that. Okay, we're going to donate it
mm,
to the next person. So we did a lot of decluttering. And then when we went into the temp apartments, we said, we're only going to get what we just love. Like, if you love this Giver book, we're going to keep the Giver. Okay. That's going to be on our stack. So now when we're packing for DR, it's kind of like, what is a must have for you to have in your new room to make you feel comfortable? Of course, my
that's
nine-year-old was like, "All my plushies, all my plushies." He had all of the mellow plushies in there. I said, "Okay, Benjamin, we don't need 15
Mhm.
plushies. Let's break this down to let's the first 5." And they both play instruments, so they wanna take the trombone, the clarinet, the bass drum. They wanted to take all of the instruments. So we actually had to kind of tell them, "Okay, we're taking certain instruments we're not shipping." So that's kind of, we've based it off priority. What do you need so that you can make a safe haven in Dominican Republic? Your room is your safe haven. What are the things that you need to make that room safe, to make that room comfortable? So I'm trying to look at it from a standpoint of we want to keep things that are familiar to them, you know?
Yeah. What was one of the biggest things that you learned during this whole process for you and your husband?
That you have to be patient and you have to be able to pivot because if you don't, you're going to go crazy. I'm telling you, my movers just called me yesterday after I packed 12 boxes this weekend and said, "Oh, the ship
Mm.
is late." So I was like, "Okay, so when is the ship coming?" The ship is going to be in Houston on the 2nd of on the 5th of May, so now I'll pick up on the 2nd of May.
Oh,
And I
no.
said, "Okay,
Oh,
well, we will continue to pack." Thank you for letting me know.
more time.
More time.
Mhm,
But
mhm.
if you kind of, and I think I'm sometimes guilty of that. If you stick yourself with this American mindset of it has to be like this, it's not going to be a peaceful, like smooth transition because you're trying to make things work in this mentality. Gotta have to be
Mhm,
allow yourself some grace and have to be able to pivot.
I love that
mm.
you say the American mentality because honestly, if we're true to what we've been feeling, Danny and I are the most excited for escaping that in this move. I'm curious to know what factors you and your husband considered in making the jump.
So it was a lot of factors. There was the cultural component of it. Like here in Texas, there's really not a lot of Dominicans.
Mhm,
Like when you really think about it, my kids are like islands. Then there's the family component of it. We're the only family that we have here in Texas. So my kids are just attached to us. My mom, she lives in New Jersey. She goes back and forth to DR 3 times a year. My sister's in San Diego, and the rest of our family's in Dominican Republic. So that was a big, big component of it. The cultural component, I felt like my kid told me the other day his favorite dessert was pecan pie. I looked at him, I was like, I was like, "What? What?" I died. I was like, "Muchacho, please don't say that in DR, please." They're gonna be like, "What is pecan?"
Like, don't embarrass me like that.
What is this? Yeah.
And the other one was like, "Oh, sweet potato pie." I said, "Okay, that's it. It's a
Mhm,
wrap." I think they haven't had the opportunity to experience the culture enough for them to know their identity, you know? And it's very proponent here in Texas. Like just a couple years ago, we were having a conversation of why you're not Mexican. You are not Mexican. Well, the kids in school call me Mexican.
Oh
mhm.
no.
So we looked at it that way, and another big proponent is the health issue here in the States. My husband has been, like, having some GI issues, and it's been, like I think it's in the food, yo. I'm pretty sure it is because there's nothing in DR that affects him when he eats there.
Mm,
But when he eats here, it's like, "Oh, you're gluten. You have gluten this, you have gluten that." I'm like, how is this is this bread?" And in DR, it's bread,
Hmm.
but it's not causing
Hmm.
me these aversions, you know? So
mhm.
there was between family, the culture component, the health component, and just kinda getting out of the rat race because this is my 14th year teaching, and when I went to visit the schools, I saw the happiness in those teachers, like, the happiness that I felt my first or second year or third year teaching, you know?
Hmm. No, that's a great thing about that. Like, I remember when we announced that we were planning to move over there. Man, there was, a lot. The majority of people were very happy, right? But there was some. They were like, "Why Dominican Republic? It's not safe over there. Why are you going over there?" And all this stuff. And look, compared to when I used to live in Dominican Republic till now, it completely changed. Like it's totally
That's
different
true.
compared to like the 80s and 90s. And I feel like a lot of people are still stuck in that mentality where you know. Them thinking about, oh, Dominican Republic in the 90s, like, no, it's totally different now. There's more expats more than ever living over there. Crime has been declining a lot. I'm not saying that it's perfect like, like other countries, but it's gotten a lot better. Have you ever have that conversation with other people too when you mention, oh, I'm moving to Dominican Republic, and they will always bring that up about safety, about IDR, and so on?
Yes, I actually did. When I broke the news to my close friends, I had a lot of pushback. I had more pushback than what I thought it was going to be like. My
Hmm.
mom, she was kinda like, "What's got into you? Are you
Hmm.
having a 40s crisis? This You're turning 40, so you're having, like, this is, like, your midlife crisis right now?" They just couldn't
Hmm.
understand what and this is coming from an immigrant mentality, you know? My mom's first she was the one that migrated here. So, she was like, "I brought you here. Why would you want to leave? This is the land of the free, the land of the opportunity, and you've done so well for yourself." And my other friends were kinda like, "Yeah, but you're going to a third world country." You
Yeah,
know,
I hear that. Hmm.
and you want a better life, but you're going to a third world country, and they're not really understanding that it's not a third world country anymore.
It's not.
It's now a developing nation, you know? And they're not really understanding that these first world countries, they're having massive economic hurdles right now. And not just economic, they're having cultural hurdles. If you see what's
Mhm.
going on in the news, your anxiety is up just by looking at the news, breaking news, breaking news, breaking news, you know? Um, and that affects the way you raise your kids. That affects your mental state. That affects how you perform in your job. That affects you as a whole, you know? And when sometimes you need to remove yourself from that.
Yeah, 100%.
Absolutely. I for one am exactly aligned with where you're coming from. I'm not a child of immigrants, I'm a child of slaves, and slave owners. But one thing that I find it's very paradoxical in my existence here is that while my ancestors were brought here to work the land, and were allegedly given freedom, I've I know that we've never really been free. Like, systemic limitations exist for me no matter how hard I work, no matter how much I achieve. Even as we talked about in the last episode, going through childbirth here is a risk for Black women. So I definitely can relate to wanting to feel more free, wanting to feel more at ease, wanting to feel more safe in just existing and not having to fight against everything all the time, which is how it feels
That
surviving
is
in
true.
America. It does not feel like living right now.
Mhm.
Yeah, that is true.
Mm.
I've seen the stats and they're quite astonishing, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Any questions, Ree?
Yeah, Kenya, I really love hearing that your family has been working on this for a really long time. But what was kind of like the turning point for you? Like, when did you, say, okay, this is happening and start really moving from thinking about it into action? And what pulled that light switch for you?
Okay. So this is a very, very funny story. I
Hmm.
am a veteran. I am like a veteran of the United States Army.
Thank you for
So
your service.
Thank you for
it
your
was a
service.
it was a pleasure to serve you guys. I would do it again.
Mhm.
So a couple years ago, I got a letter from the VA letting me know that I had reached their maximum rating after I got out of going all these medical. And I told my husband, I said, well, I think they're going to send me some money now. And
Mm.
he was like, yeah, I think they're going to send you some money. So they started sending me like a compensation for my service. And when they did, I told my husband, I said, we're going to make a bet. They're giving me this money. And if I cannot save at least half of this money, we're going to DR.
Hmm.
Hmm. Okay.
Well, he was the one that was always on the fence about going to DR. And we did it for a year. I started getting the compensation in February. And I tallied everything because I'm like a big budgeter type person. I tallied all of the months, how much. Guess what? I did not save not even a quarter of that money with the
Man.
Mm.
inflation. Not even a quarter of that money. And this is tax-free money that are giving to veterans. And the amount is so much that you could live off this. A family can live off this in Dominican Republic with no issues, no issues. And I told him, I said, we need to get out because we're going to waste our time in the rat race going and going and going and going.
Mhm. Man,
So
that's how we feel. That's how we
that's the,
feel.
that is the aha moment that I had. And when he looked at it, he kept looking at the spreadsheet, like, where's the rest of it?
Like,
He
hold on.
kept looking at it
Yeah.
like, which tab am I clicking on? Am I clicking on this tab? When I sent it to him at the end of the year, he was like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah, the roof got done. And the siding needs to get repainted. All of these
Mhm.
things were done. And he was kind of like in shock, like, Kenya, that was like more than $50,000. And I said, yeah.
Mm.
Wow.
And we didn't save not even a quarter of it.
Have you looked up of veteran clinics over there in Dominican Republic? Have you been researching
Yeah.
about that? 'Cause there's a lot of programs that where a lot of veterans don't know about that, where they could also go to the clinics and get their checkup, everything in there, and also a lot of benefits too. Where I believe that's like a hotel too, right in Punta Cana, where they
Mhm.
also will invite veterans from the states to Dominican Republic, and they also help them on not only in the clinic side but also excursions and for them to show like the reason for them to move over there to Dominican Republic. Have you seen those or no?
Yes, I have. Actually, so when I reached out to the VA to let them know that I was moving, they actually enrolled me. I made a video about that. They enrolled me on this program that's called the FMP program. And the FMP program works like this. There's clinics in Dominican Republic, and these small clinics, they don't work, they're not part of the VA. They're kind of VA affiliated. So they bill the VA for services that they provide their service members that are service connected disabilities. So if I have like a migraine ailment that was caused in the army, then they would pay for all of my visits to that clinic for that ailment. And I know there's a few clinics. I was waiting to get down there to go like and check it out. Then I know there's a hotel, and I know that they do acupuncture. My dad is down there right now. He's
Oh,
also a veteran.
nice.
Yeah, so he's down there. He has like they give him like a checklist of all the things he needs to do. Hey, you need to see neuro, you need to see, and then he sees all his doctors in one place.
Wow.
That is cool. That is cool.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
actually pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I know there's several. I know the only ones that I know in Punta Cana. I know in Jarabacoa there's another one too. And also I believe in Santo Domingo too. But for you living in Punta Cana, it's
Yeah.
gonna be close for you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they have a
that's really
few.
cool. Yeah, yeah. I know you guys already bought a house and everything. What was it the reason that you selected that area in Punta Cana out of all areas in Punta Cana. 'Cause there's so many places over there. Yeah, for us, we like the area where it's like uh, similar to like Punta Cana Village, Vista Cana, that type of vibe. Because I feel like there was a lot of community there. It's easy to see people. There's actually schools nearby too around that area. That those are the reasons for you guys selected that house in
So
particular. You don't have to mention the
act
location, but you know.
so actually, when we went out for our first scouting trip,
Mhm,
we went to the villages, we went to Cap Cana, we went to Vista Cana, we went to El Primaveral, we went to Cana Bay. We saw a lot of communities, but that community itself, we saw a lot of kids out there. They had a soccer field, a basketball. They have a restaurant, a pool area, and
mhm,
it's an older, like, more established community. They have one area that's, being developed, but ultimately, every time we went to one of those, like, gated communities that was I don't know how to explain it, that was, like, I felt like you were in a bubble, like, in villages
Mm.
or in Cap Cana. And
mhm,
I have 2 loud, rambunctious boys. They're gonna be out there in the batteries. I got a trombone player. They're always out there doing something. They already told me,
mhm,
"You need to get us a basketball hoop," and they're gonna be out there living their best life. So
mhm.
I kinda try to envision them in these communities, and I wanted them to have a little bit more of that Dominican aspect. Not completely like, boom, put them in El Campo, that's crazy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I wanted them to not be in such a bubble where they're not going to ever see, like, another Dominican or another Dominican that speaks fluent Dominican Spanish.
Mhm.
So, my husband and I, we spoke a lot about all of the communities, and I think this one was kind of like that middle ground, you know? Like, we
Mhm.
have to security, you're not gonna just get in there, but there's also a lot of Dominicans that live there that are working class Dominicans,
That's
you
cool.
know?
Really, really cool.
All right, so Kenya, we could talk about this forever, and I have a feeling we probably will talk again in the future. But if I had to give you one last question, what would you say to people who are either curious about this process or maybe living vicariously through us, or maybe on the fence and about to make a decision about leaving? What would you say to those folks?
I would tell them to if you don't go, you'll always have it in the back of your head. What if? I feel like all of these years of me contemplating, should I go to DR? Should I go to DR? Have brought me to this point. If I don't go, I will always ask myself, what could my life have been if I would have went to DR? And ultimately,
Yeah.
I don't want to live with that over my head, you know? And I
That
know it's
what if.
harder. Yeah, I know it's harder with a family because, now you're not looking for your best interest, you're looking for your child's best interest. But there's so much for them to learn as global citizens that just doesn't stop in the United States of America, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. It's so interesting to hear your family coming to the exact same realization that we did about just feeling stressed, feeling burnt out, wanting better opportunities, wanting better environments, not just for us, but for our kids. And I know a lot of expats who are childless, but more who have kids that they've been thinking about, wanting to give them more opportunities for their future. And I'm really, really glad that at least we know another family out there in Punta Cana that are like-minded and we can look to for inspiration and advice. And because you're about a year ahead of us in your process, we can learn a lot from everything that you've been sharing. So thank you
And
for being so open about your journey. It's changed our lives. So I really appreciate it.
I'm just, it's like I told my cousin the other day. I just want that if I could be a help to anyone out there, for me to be able to help because the more I've searched for people that are in my same position, I'm really not finding that many. And I told my husband, I said, if somebody can look up a video how to set up the electricity, I want to be that person to say, hey, this is what you have to do. Because we were lost. We are like, what do you need? What do we need?
And believe me, I saved that video to our
I
little
was like,
moving
what do we need?
folder.
What do we need? What
So
do we need?
well, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you on, and we won't take up much more of your time. But I'm gonna have a lot more questions for you in the future, and we want to support the channel. So people can find you at TropiMom Diaries. That's TropiMom Diaries, and you're on everything, right? But mainly YouTube.
I'm on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. So they can find me anywhere through those social media platforms.
For sure. And I know I found you on TikTok, which is where we started chatting. And y'all, if you're looking for information on how to move, what they have for VA resources, on packing, on setting up your systems, on loans, which your loan breakdown is very helpful for us as we're talking to our lawyers. She really has it all covered for you. So please be sure to check that out if you're in the same boat with us, because we all got to figure out a way to get through this together.
Thank you for having me, Ree.
Thank you so much for being here, and good luck. We'll be following along in your journey, and hopefully we'll see you in country very soon. Take
All
care.
right, hon. Take care.